All right, good evening. Noting the time and the presence of a quorum, I'd like to call this February 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Acton Select Board to order. This entire meeting will be virtual due to the state of emergency and severe snowstorm situation we've got going on. A couple of things that'll be a little bit different. We haven't done one of these since we got out of COVID. So I might be a little bit rusty, but I will try to be as careful as possible. I'll be relying heavily on the town clerk to call rolls for a lot of the votes. We will be getting through as much of the agenda as we possibly can. There'll probably, as there always is, there'll probably be a few things that are going to be continued to a subsequent meeting, and we'll deal with that as we go through. As is our custom, we're going to limit public comment to 3 minutes, and the clerk will be keeping an eye on that. And with that, I will open this. The clerk, please call the roll. I'm not sure that's necessary, but let's handle it anyway.
Okay, Mr. Snyder Grant?
Here.
Mr. Charter?
Here.
Ms. Arsenault?
Here.
Ms. Nickel?
Here.
And David Martin is also here.
Thank you. We'll begin with resident concerns. If anyone has any concerns they'd like to bring up that's right and not in the agenda, please raise your hand. We'll try to get to you.
There are 2 hands up.
Najan Qatar?
Yeah, hi. 2 things. I may not be able to stay for the meeting, so I just want to say I noticed in the agenda that there's the 27 and 2A roundabout discussion, and I live close to 27 and 2A, and I think we need roundabouts in different parts of the town, but not there. The smart lights are working really well. There's no backup. I use that intersection almost all the time, so I don't know who suggested that, whatever. But I think that's the wrong place to have a roundabout. Now, there might be roundabouts needed by Hayward or near Acton Medical, or even somebody suggested where Harris Street meets Great Road. Those are good places for where it's hard to take a left turn. A roundabout may be, worth discussing. But please don't put a roundabout at 27 and 2A. That intersection with the new smart lights are working great, and the backups are minimal to none. And so don't. That's like solving a problem that doesn't exist. Secondly, on the DPW thing, when you come up with it, I don't know if you're going to present a baseline so we can compare how much extra cost the electrification is going to take, so we at least know, or at least the town know, citizens know how much extra money they're going to pay, for the climate agenda, basically, so they can make a decision whether it's worth their tax money or not to pay X amount. If it's a small amount, I don't think anybody cares, but if it's a large amount, then we need to know if it's worth investing all this money for climate ideology. So thank you.
Thank you, Nijan. Okay, next.
Glenn Cody?
Hi, folks. Do I have audio?
Yes, you do, Glenn.
All right, thank you. Good to see you all. Happy to be on my first virtual Zoom select board thing. I've been out in the snow for a bit, so I'll be just reading some prepared remarks, so forgive the stiff delivery. So school committee, we have, of course, had Budget Monday recently. Dillinger is a consultant we've hired. They gave the committee a first high-level look at how geography-based the enrollment model could work in practice, including what it would look like to draw boundaries, keep things balanced over time, and reduce confusion for families. The presentation focused on the big picture, building a system that is predictable, fair, and easier to manage year after year, while also being thoughtful about community connections and student experience. The workshop reviewed the fiscal year 2027 preliminary budget of, I'll just say, a little over 122 million, a 4.55% increase, along with proposed assessments of about 82.83 million and change for Acton. That's 3.75% increase, and 17.7 million plus some change for Boxborough. That's 5.57. The biggest cost pressures are fixed and hard to control, especially health insurance. That's a big one. Budgeted up 14.4% to 14.8 million, including a 741,000 retiree increase and out of district special education tuitions. And I think for the purposes of not overwhelming with details, I'll send these remarks later for the more technical details. On staffing, the personal budget is about 75.7 million, up 2.96. Let's just call it 3, while still showing major reshaping tied to reorganization. The plan reduces positions like elementary school classroom educators, 3 unified arts, and certain admin roles, while adding targeted supports for 2 elementary counselors, a lab special educator, BCBA capacity, and other additional special education assistants. Nursing coverage shifts by converting 1 registered nurse into
30 seconds.
2 LPNs. Yep, 30 seconds. On the revenue side, the budget assumes 20.2 million in state aid, including 17.5 Chapter 70, using a conservative 75 per pupil minimum aid assumption. It also uses 1 million in one-time excess and deficiency for transition costs, offsetting expenses without raising assessments, and reduces the OPEB contribution by 550,000 or so to manage short-term pressure. And that's everything. That was a pretty dense one, so I'll just go ahead and email that to, what's the best email for the select board? Oh, I can find that on the website. But I think that's all I got. I'm happy to answer questions. My cell is around and my email is to both school committee, and I'm sure I'll see some of you at Trader Joe's.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else, David?
No, that's it.
Okay. Let's see, chair update. I don't have anything in particular. I'm sure that I'm going to lots of time to talk about the storm and our response to it. And we do have a fairly packed agenda, so I will dispense with my comments. I'll go right to the town manager.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had to close all the town buildings, so the schools were closed as well. As you know, we had a pretty good amount of snow. I'm happy to report, I just checked the Eversource website. Earlier today, we had 5% of the town without power. As of right now, it says fewer than 2 households are without power. So not great for that one household, but good news overall that most of the town has been restored, and hopefully, I know there's some wind gusts coming, but hopefully that stays that way. And thanks to the DPW who's out starting yesterday, getting ready, and then throughout the night, and they'll be going pretty strong throughout the night tonight as well. And thanks to everyone else who contributed and keep people safe. Thanks for folks for staying off the roads, like you all and attendees tonight. We're meeting virtually, which that's about 30 or 40 less cars on the road tonight. So thank you. And that's all I had. Look forward to getting into some other things in the agenda tonight.
Okay, thank you. Comments from my colleagues. Alyssa.
Thanks. I just have one announcement tonight. The Acton Water District annual meeting is scheduled for March 18th at 6 p.m. and that's going to be at the Public Safety Facility on Main Street. And any registered voter, regardless of whether you are a water taker, you are eligible to attend that meeting.
Thank you. David.
Also, just one thing. On Wednesday at 6 o'clock in Town Hall is a forum on a safety audit at Parker Street and possibly putting sidewalks on Parker Street. And so if you go to model room 204 at 6 o'clock Wednesday, if you're interested in finding out more and giving your opinion.
Thank you. Jim.
Thanks. See,
The volunteer coordinating committee has not met for almost 3 months because of some health issues. The committee is now moving forward with a temporary reorganization to allow it to set a meeting in March and bring some long delayed applicants through the process. So if you're a liaison to committees that have been waiting, it seems like the logjam is opening up now. I may be bringing a proposal to the next select board meeting to change the composition of the committee to make quorum easier to meet. Three full-time members instead of 5, and an additional associate position. Also at a select board meeting in the near future, a review of the reappointment process with some key adjustments proposed to make the process simpler, more accurate, and more complete. And also Alyssa and I have been exchanging ideas about the longer term volunteer goal. And we may have a proposal for you soon about a survey of existing committee members. The Commission on Disabilities is preparing for an event during April vacation week in which people who want to learn about using the MBTA commuter rail, especially people with disabilities, can take a trip together. Publicity will be coming out soon, including a way to sign up beforehand. So look for that. Tomorrow night, Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton in Stowe, I'll be on a panel with climate activists from Stowe, Hudson, and Maynard, reflecting on what our towns have been able to do about climate over the last 10 years and what's next. Finally, I've told Dean about the handful of things I'd like to work with the board on before I leave. Here's the list in case any one person, select board member, wants to talk to me about them beforehand. Of course, not 2 folks to avoid OML issues. First, an update and possibly a proposal about how we can work with National Grid on the transition from natural gas to electricity. I've been looking through records of repairs, replacements, and new gas services, and Andrea Becerra of the Sustainability Department has been having productive meetings with National Grid. Next, I have a straightforward proposal to take the new cross-sectional method of evaluating replacement tree requirements from last year's tree clearing bylaw and applying it to the scenic street tree policy. And finally, presenting the town bounds report for your review and approval. So hopefully over the next 2 months, we'll be doing those 3 things. Thanks.
Thank you. Fran, do you have anything? Nope. Okay, Alyssa.
I just wanted to add on to David's announcement about the Parker Street Forum that's happening on Wednesday night, just so folks have managed expectations. The scope is from the railroad track to High Street. So if you're on the railroad track to School Street, then it's not going to cover that area at this point in time. So just so folks are aware of what's being discussed on Wednesday night.
Thank you. All right, we'll move along. New and special business. Item 3, approve request by Boston area Gleaners to waive construction permitting fees associated with construction of a storage shed at 91 Martin Street. John.
Thank you. This is a project that I think received some earmark funding from the state, and they're moving forward with it. They've been working with the building department. They have everything they need from the building department, but one of the things that they've requested is a waiver on some of the fees associated with the cost of the project. There's some information in the packet about the project, which is some storage facility for the farm operations. And there may be representatives here tonight. There are. If you have questions about it, or if they want to, is it okay if they speak briefly to the request?
Certainly. Yep.
You should be able to speak now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. This is Usha Chakrar. I'm the executive director. I know you all. Anyway, I'm the executive director at Boston Area Gleaners. Thank you for considering this request. I did send along a couple of page description of the project. I think most of you are aware that this is a project we've been hoping to complete for a number of years. Our current cold storage is sort of a mix of containers and old trucks and old trailers, and we were fortunate enough to receive 2 sets of funding from the state, one through Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources Food Security Infrastructure Program, and then an earmark that Senator Eldridge was able to secure for us. We're on a little bit of a tight timeline because both of those sets of funds follow the state budget and have to be expended by the end of June. We are through the permitting process. Ironically, we were hoping to at least start construction today. That didn't happen. But we were hoping for a fee reduction on the building permit fee. The portal spit out a fee of a little over $20,000, and for an organization of our size, that's a heavy lift. And obviously, we understand there are costs associated with this, but if there was any opportunity to lower that fee, we would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. John, comments?
So the board has received requests like this in the last few years from local nonprofits, and there's been a few that the board has approved partial waivers for building permit fees and other things related to some of the overhead costs for projects that support a community good like this. Ed Mullen, our building commissioner, reviewed it, and he's comfortable with whatever the board is comfortable with waiving. He thinks that the project is pretty well controlled. They have a third-party person doing some work, and he's comfortable with some type of fee waiver if the board is willing to do it.
Okay, thank you. Fran? You're muted, Fran.
Sorry. I was curious what we decided. Someone might be able to remember more than I would. The fees we allowed for the Acton food pantry. I know, does anyone else remember? Did we waive fees for them?
I believe I remember that we waived fees for them and for a number of other projects as well, but John might have a...
Yeah, Lisa did some research in case that question came up, and I had it on my desk ready to discuss. Hold on, I gotta try to find it.
It was a partial waiver for the.
I thought so too. Yep.
I don't remember the exact amount, but it wasn't a complete waive.
Is Ed, are you here? I thought I saw Ed Mullen here. You mind chiming in?
Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. For the food pantry, I believe you guys waived the fee to half, to about 50%, which did cover the cost for the inspections. Typically, the estimated cost to send an inspector out with a town vehicle and the time and the services provided, it's roughly around $100 per inspection. I don't think we'll need the full amount that was stated in OpenGov for this project, but a 50%, I think, or even less, we'd be okay with it. We'd be able to cover the cost of the work provided and the services provided.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Alyssa?
I would love to hear from Ed if he's willing to tell us what a little less would be comfortable. A range, like, are we talking between 10 and 50%? Or are we talking between 30 and 50%? A little guidance, I think, would help the board.
Yeah, I would think between 30 and 50%. I did some quick math on it, and I figured it would be close to probably, it's got a quick timeline, so I anticipate a lot of site visits in the beginning and throughout the project, but we'll deliver them as quick as possible so they can move fast. And plumbing, electrical, and then the building, where we have to do excavation and concrete inspections to get them out of the ground. And then the full frame, when it comes to frame, it's a steel structure, so it should go up fairly quickly. So somewhere between 30 and 50%, I think, would be reasonable.
Is there a way, since it's on a quick timeline, to say that we would cover the real costs to the town staff, and then no more beyond that? Because I think that's where we got our percentages before.
If I may, Ed, can you remind me what the estimated building fee was or is?
The fee was 20, for this one is 20,000 and change, the permit fee.
And so if the board were to waive 50,000, it would limit them to 10,000 in fees. I think I just found the information from the food pantry. It looks like the board capped building permit fees at 4,000 for the food pantry. Does that sound right, Ed?
It does. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
Yes, so I'm in favor of reducing the fees. I'm not in favor of eliminating them because we fund fire protection out of this fund and other things. But if people wanted, I'd be happy to make a motion to limit the fees to $5,000 or $7,500.
Just a quick calculation of 20,400 is about 6,000. So that sounds like a right range you have, David. Yeah, it was $20,403.04 is what's in Usha's letter.
I'd favor 7,000, but it's David's motion to make.
Okay, I move that we limit building permit fees to $6,000 on the Gleaners refrigerated storage project.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nickel,
Yes.
and I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
We will move on to item 4, discuss and consider Great Road Route 2A and 27 conceptual design for roundabout option.
So as the board knows, we've been working on some design with the state in collaboration with the state with some state funding to do many intersections over along Great Road. This one in particular is getting some momentum on the tip, which is the long-term planning and funding process to get the state to pay for big infrastructure projects like Kelly's Corner. In any event, we got pretty far into the design process, and we had already discussed the idea of a roundabout and thought it wasn't going to work here for various reasons. But the state has asked us to take a second look at it before they'll advance our project into the design process. So Corey did some outreach to some businesses that are in that intersection, over at Acorn Plaza, which is where CVS and Blackbird Cafe are, and also talked to some other stakeholders, including the gas station owners and the Recreation Commission, because there's a ball field over there. And some of the feedback that he received from all those folks is in the packet. Overall, it seemed like there'd be a lot of land that would have to be taken from those properties I just mentioned, and it seemed like it would be create some challenges for how that area operates right now. So we wanted to bring it to the board. If there's interest in talking about a roundabout, we'll talk about it. But if you're ready to move on from the idea, we would just need to hear that from you all.
Okay, thank you, John. I'll lead off on this one. So up in the Maritimes, I go around a lot of roundabouts, and it seems to me that they work pretty well if you don't have heavy traffic. But I think at 2A and 27, where there's so much traffic, I just can't imagine how this would work and not create gridlock. So basically what it would do is might relieve some of the gridlock at the Concord Rotary because everybody would be stuck at 2A and 27. But I'm ready to move on. I see nothing in favor of this, but I will defer to my colleagues. Alyssa.
I'm inclined to not consider a roundabout because I've reviewed the GPI. Sorry, I don't remember what that stands for, but they were the engineers, the engineering firm who conducted the Complete Streets survey for Great Road, and they did not recommend a roundabout at this intersection. And it seems as if since the data that they used was the most recently available data in terms of pedestrian and bicycle traffic and crash data. And it seems that since then we have improved the intersection, first of all with the sidewalk extension, and then it sounds like a resident is noting that there's now a responsive traffic light, which is good. So I think that all of that indicates that there isn't a need for a roundabout here.
Thank you. Other comments? David?
Yes, several things. You're absolutely right, Dean, that roundabouts work better in light and even traffic. In other words, one road doesn't dominate the other, and fairly light traffic. But a couple of things. Roundabouts are generally safer for cars because the angle of an accident is not either a T-bone or head-on, and that's a good thing. Also, the speeds are lower. However, it's a mixed bag for pedestrians and bicycles. For pedestrians, like in this case, where what would be proposed would be to have refuge islands between every roadway, you'd have 4 crossings to go across, right? And we'd need maybe flashing beacons, eight sets of flashing beacons to get through. So the good thing for pedestrians is that the crossing distances are shorter. But the bad thing, especially for young people, is young people don't have our instincts for driving. You have to learn as you're crossing each segment to look first left over your shoulder, then right, then left over your shoulder, then right. Or if you're going clockwise, you have to do that the other way, right? So, and kids do not have that instinct yet as to where the car is coming from. At an intersection, and so that makes it more dangerous. And for bicycles, the safety record for roundabouts is decidedly mixed, right? People don't stop; they don't expect to stop. And when a bicycle is continuing through the roundabout at a slower speed, there's a much better chance of an accident, and the slower speeds that are in a roundabout really don't matter to a bicycle, right? You're still going to get, you don't have any protection around you. So I don't really consider, except in really in certain situations, that a roundabout is best for complete streets. Also, and finally, roundabouts, and we see this in this design, generally take more land area, right? So more area is paved to accommodate the roundabout than with a traditional just cross intersection. So there are some intersections in town I think we could have a roundabout. I agree with others that say this is not the best of those.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Fran?
I'll agree with what has been said. I was curious too, referring to Alyssa's mention of the GPI study that was done, that I think it was from Concord Road to, maybe it was from Concord Road to Nagog, I'm not positive, but they did mention having roundabouts at Harris, which I thought was a great idea, just to slow traffic. I think this is such a busy intersection that I don't know if this is a great idea, but we'll see how this develops.
Okay, thank you. All right, John, would you like a vote to?
Yeah, we would need a vote to report to the state that we've considered it and what you decided when you did that.
Okay, Alyssa.
Can I just ask, John, you said that things are moving on this intersection. Is there anything besides the extension of the sidewalk that is planned for this intersection? Because when I looked at the Complete Streets report, it looked like what had been planned and recommended by GPI was already done, but I could be missing something.
Yeah, I think that they looked at the state did some work on it, line work and easy things a few years ago, consistent with what the design that we're trying to move forward. I don't know how much more would change, but other than they try to make it more perpendicular when they can, and
Okay.
things like that. I can recirculate that design, but with the stage it's at right now, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. So I guess I would move, I don't know, to reject the roundabout concept at the intersection of 119 and 27.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yeah, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nickel,
Yes.
and I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So next we have a site plan special permit. I will read the notice. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on February 23rd, 2026, at 6:30 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204 at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually, actonma.gov/meeting/SB, on the application of Primrose Schools Franchising Company for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 457 Mass Ave. The applicant proposes to construct a two-story, 14,134 square foot childcare facility. Application materials and how to participate remotely are available online at Acton Town Hall at doc.actonma.gov/view/collection-19896. And Alyssa is the liaison on this project, so I will let her lead off.
Thank you. So I just met with planning staff this morning virtually. I wanted to provide just a tiny bit of background. 457 Mass Ave is currently owned by Common Ground Development. And back in 2023, they had presented plans for a 37-unit affordable housing project that had a 12,425 square foot footprint and associated parking lot of 31 spaces and retention of the mid-19th century historic house on the property that they were proposing to use for office and mail space for the residential building. That did not move forward because there was insufficient sewer discharge capacity remaining at the time, as it was allotted to some other housing developments. The applicant before us tonight is Primrose Schools, and they are proposing the demolition of the historic home and the barn. And I will point out that the proposal removes almost all of the trees on the site, and there is significant earthworks required to level the site, which is basically removing a lot of soil and then backfilling near the street to level the site, and that would require the installation of retaining walls on both the south and the north portion of the property. The building that's being proposed is a 14,000 square foot building, but 2 stories. So the footprint is about 7,000 square feet. And then the associated parking lot, which is required to be 47 spaces, and then outdoor play spaces. So the home, because it's a mid-19th century historic property, is on our cultural resource list. And so the Historical Commission imposed a demolition delay on demolishing the house, and that expires this November. And I also want to point out that the intent of the bylaw is for an applicant to exert a good faith effort to incorporate the structure into their plans, if not the entire structure, at least the front facade, or find a buyer and relocate the house. And it's been reported by the Historical Commission that there hasn't been any effort made to that end as of yet. Also, I got the chair's permission today just to provide a brief summary of some of the legal notes that we have received as a board. Just so folks, the board members are aware, but just for folks in the public, because we have received a couple of requests for us to outright reject this plan. The proposed use, the child care facility, is allowed even though this is in a residential district per legislation at the state level, the Dover Amendment. So the town cannot deny the use outright or impose conditions that would effectively deny it, meaning that we can impose conditions that would make it impossible or impractical for the applicant to use it as intended as a childcare facility. We received the most recently published guidance from the Attorney General's office, forwarded to us by council, that explains the site plan review that we're doing right now allows for the board to impose reasonable dimensional requirements in one of 8 categories listed in the statute. Bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage. The memo from the Attorney General's office states that regardless of the local procedure, a municipality seeking to impose conditions on a Dover protected use should be specific and transparent in its decision-making and should make clear how, in imposing conditions on the use, the municipality has struck a balance between preventing local discrimination against an educational use and legitimate municipal goals advanced by reasonable zoning regulations. Town council further notes that the burden is on the applicant to prove any of these local requirements that we might choose to impose to advance the town's legitimate concerns are unreasonable. So any interest that the board identifies during the site plan review process needs to be specifically named and explained, and then council would be able to review those. I will note that the third-party engineering review was just sent to planning today, so the applicant has not had time to review and respond to it. Just a couple of notes. GCG, our third-party engineering review, suggested the driveway have a posted no left turn onto Massachusetts Avenue. Snow storage locations need to be drawn on the plans. They suggested reconsidering the dumpster location, noting that a sidewalk along the entire frontage is required, and that's not in the plans right now. Also noting that the slope of the parking lot exceeds ADA requirements, so that can be adjusted. And they also noted that the natural gas use that's proposed would require a waiver. The Acton Water District also sent in comments, noting that because there's an irrigation system proposed, that plantings need to be native and drought tolerant, and the proposed increase to the size of the water pipe needs to be justified in the water impact report that the applicant submits.
Okay. Thank you. Well, that kind of sets the tone. Is the applicant here to make a presentation?
Yep, I'm going to promote Jonathan Silverman, Acton Drake, and I believe that's it for the applicants who are in the waiting room. Jonathan Silverstein, sorry, Jonathan.
Oh, that's fine. Good evening.
Oh. And Josh Klein.
With your permission, I'll lead things off. I'm Jonathan Silverstein, Platinum Dabrowski, Heberty and Silverstein, with an office in West Concord on behalf of the applicant. As was indicated, this is a proposed over amendment project for a daycare, and we have sought waivers from certain of the dimensional requirements contained in the bylaw. I'm happy to review them specifically, but I'm happy to also just give a broad overview and answer questions that the board may have. We feel that this is an appropriate location. It supports proximate to public school in a heavily trafficked area. We don't anticipate, and our traffic analysis does not indicate that there's going to be any significant traffic impact, and the peer review analysis does not seem to contest that. As indicated earlier, we just received the the peer review report today, so we haven't, of course, had a chance to prepare a written response. We're prepared to and will do so. There's nothing in the report that seems difficult to resolve, and when Josh or Adam speak to the specifics of the civil design, I'm sure they can touch on that briefly. But again, we won't plan to try to resolve or address those comments specifically today since we just received them. We have adequate parking under the bylaw. We comply with required setbacks. As indicated, there is some relief we need from open space and from the maximum net floor area allowed under the bylaw. And I will defer to the memorandum you've received from both town council and the planning director on that issue. We do feel that that relief is warranted and appropriate. The trees, we're prepared to engage in robust landscaping within the limitations of the site, and our landscaping plan does show that. So we don't feel that anything is prohibitive in terms of compliance with the tree bylaw. We did request a waiver of the parking landscaping requirement. Pretty minor waiver, but we did ask for that as well. You may recall we negotiated with the board last year a memorandum of agreement with respect to sewer flow. So that is already resolved. And in terms of the stormwater design, handicap accessibility, and some of the other issues that were addressed in the peer review report, I will defer to Adam. At this time, I think it would be helpful for the board to get a quick run through of the site plans and the architectural. So I would send it over to Adam unless you have any questions for me at this point.
Nope, that's fine. Let's see the presentation.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, Jonathan. Good evening. My name's Adam Drake. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design based out of 120 Washington Street in Salem, Mass. We're the site civil as well as the traffic engineer on the project. Let me share the site plans here. Let me know when you can all see that. Good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd like to start by giving some background on Primrose Schools as a company. So Primrose operates about 14 locations in the Northeast, half a dozen of those being within an hour drive of this proposed location. And beyond that, Primrose operates over 500 locations nationwide. So they have a long due diligence and site selection process to ensure the site can support the proposed use from a operational, a traffic, as well as an environmental perspective. Primrose is really looking to make an investment in the community and bring a much needed use to this town. So the existing parcel is 1.4 acres and it's located within the Residence 2 zoning district. While this is a Dover protected use, it's also a permitted use within the Residence 2 zoning district. Now, the site is currently developed with a single family home, a detached garage, as well as a swimming pool. I'd also like to note that the property has 264 feet of frontage along Massachusetts Avenue. Now, Massachusetts Avenue is a Mass DOT road, meaning we'll have to get a separate access permit through them. We'll also have to go through a separate review with Mass DOT where they will review our proposed plans as well as the traffic report that we submitted. Now, the existing property has a substantial grade change. It rises about 20 feet from the road up to that rear property line there. And now moving into the proposed development, we've spent a long time in this site selection process. We really want to ensure we're giving the community a high quality product. We tried to set the Dover amendment aside and make sure the proposed development conforms with all the local bulk regulations. Now, the proposed building has 7,000 square foot footprint and a little over 10,000 square feet of net floor area. Now, let me pull up a architectural rendering that can help you kind of visualize the proposed building here. Now, I would like to note there is more proposed landscaping than this shows. This is really a visual aid to kind of demonstrate the proposed building. And now I can pull this up later, but I wanted to hop back to the site plans here. So you can see we're proposing 8,000 square feet of play area, well above the state requirement. There's a larger 7,000 square foot play area to the south, and then a smaller 1,000 square foot play area to the north, which is designated for infants. We like to separate these out so that infants can be sited closer to their means of egress, which is along the northern exterior of the building. Now, all the play areas as well as the walking paths to the play areas are fully enclosed with fencing to ensure child safety. Now, looking towards the entrance of the site, we have a proposed monument sign. It's been designed with similar building materials as the main structure to help blend in with the character of the site. We're proposing one full movement driveway off of Massachusetts Avenue. And then moving up to the parking area, we have 46 parking spaces proposed in compliance with the local requirements. The rear parking spaces, kind of these 13 in the back here, are intended to be for employees only. That'll allow the spaces closest to the building to be used for parent drop-off and pickup, just to really ensure smoother operations. Now, in that northeast corner, towards the employee spaces I was referring to earlier, we have a trash enclosure. This is going to be fully screened with landscaping just to ensure none of the abutters or any of the public driving along Mass Avenue can see the garbage area. We've also submitted a comprehensive landscaping plan proposing over 20 trees and over 100 shrubs. These are all native species. Now, moving on to lighting, all of the proposed fixtures are dark sky compliant LEDs. We've oriented them to all point inwards and down onto the parking area to avoid spillover onto the abutting properties. The goal is to provide just enough lighting to ensure safe operations and nothing more that might disturb abutters or drivers on Massachusetts Avenue. Now, lastly, I'd like to go over some of the subsurface infrastructure that's proposed. So under existing conditions, all of the runoff from the site flows overland to Mass Ave. With the proposed stormwater system, we're looking to capture all of the impervious surfaces. Those will get captured with 3 subsurface infiltration systems. All that runoff will then be pre-treated to meet Mass DEP requirements. It will then be recharged into the groundwater. Now, before opening things up to questions, we would just like to note that we did receive the peer review letter from GCG Associates this morning. We have conducted kind of an initial review and didn't find any major concerns. Our plan is to update the site plans based on their peer review as well as any feedback we receive tonight. And then we'll issue kind of a revised set of plans as well as a comment response letter. Now, if you guys have any questions, we would be happy to go over them.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask my colleagues if anyone has any questions. David.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have several things. You mentioned about your lighting, and are you aware that Acton has a lighting bylaw?
Yeah, so we did review the lighting bylaw. I actually saw in the peer review letter, there was a comment about one of the fixtures being a little too high and too close to the property line. So we'll give that a second review and make sure that the revised site plans meet all of those requirements.
There's also a color standard in our bylaw.
Okay, yeah, no, we'll double check all of that and make sure it's in compliance. We appreciate you bringing that up.
My second thing is, you mentioned 46 spaces required by Acton for this development. How many spaces do you think you need? I mean, if with no limit up or down, how many?
No, that's a good question. Historically, Primrose operate efficiently at about 42 spaces. So we feel that 46 is adequate and provides, a couple extra spaces just for a buffer.
So you could go less if we wanted.
Yeah, theoretically, I believe we could operate with a few less spaces. We were just kind of working in compliance with the local ordinance.
Yes, I understand that. I just will say that as part of this, at least it's my understanding, Nate or someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but as part of this process, we can modify the parking requirements if we want to do that. And the final thing, which I think is very important to this, and especially where the discharge is in this area of Mass Ave, which gets very complicated in the morning, I believe that you all should negotiate an easement with the school district in order to be able to have a connection between your parking lot and their driveway. In many parts of the country, I'm sure if you do this for many parts of the country, they require interconnection of back parking lots as part of their zoning or other laws. But in this case, I think that I think it's going to be very common for people to go from here to the Parker Damon building or vice versa, and to have a left and a left is problematic. And in fact, there was a recommendation I heard that they for having a no left turn sign out of this. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, that would make nightmarish roundabout circulation in this area and increase traffic. So I'm not sure I agree with that, but I would very, very much like to see an interconnection between, and you negotiate an easement with the school district to have an interconnection between your parking lot and the school driveway. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, I appreciate kind of the comment there. I do remember that coming up in kind of some of our initial discussions. We did kind of preliminarily review that, and we did find some conflicts just between the grading of that access and our parking lot. So just the grading challenges as well as kind of operationally, the traffic in similar time periods. We just felt that not to be kind of the best approach. Maybe Jonathan can hop in and speak a little more clearly to kind of that requirement being imposed on the project.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I didn't hear a suggestion that this would be a requirement, more that this would be a good way maybe to avoid conflict on that tab and to sort of acknowledge that there might be parents dropping children off at both locations around the same time, and that makes a lot of sense. I understand the suggestion. I don't think it could be imposed as a requirement. If for no other reason, then we don't have the ability to do this unilaterally. That being said, I certainly have no issue reaching out to the district to have that discussion, just knowing the complexity of negotiating easements with government entities. I'm not sure how that would coincide with this permitting process. And I guess the more fundamental question is whether it would work logistically. But I'm certainly happy to have us take another look at that from an engineering standpoint, because I think that's the sort of threshold issue, whether it would work from a civil design standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from Select Board? And I can't see everyone on my screen, so if somebody on the Select Board wants to speak, why call out.
This is Alyssa. I have more questions, but I'm happy to wait until Fran and Jim ask their questions if they'd like to.
Fran.
Fran, you're muted.
Are we finished with the presentation?
I believe we are, yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I have really no questions at this time. I know that there's been a swell of folks writing about, incorporating the existing historic home with the project. I was curious if there was a way to make the actual project smaller in square footage, because it seems oversized for that lot. And I also have a letter written by the Historical Commission, if I could read it. If not, I believe it might be in the packet.
Yeah, if you want to read it, in case the applicant hasn't seen the letter yet.
Okay. And this was dated February 17th, 2026. To the Select Board, the Acton Historical Commission imposed an 18-month delay on the demolition of 457 Massachusetts Ave at our hearing on May 14th, 2025. The house at 457 Mass Ave is included in Acton's cultural resource list, and the Commission found the present building to be historically and culturally significant. The Commission also found that the demolition of the building would be detrimental to the historic heritage and resources of the town of Acton. Please refer to Ann Forbes' letter to the Select Board dated February 14th, 26 for additional information. Before the hearing, the house was examined by the Historical Commission, an architect familiar with historical structures, and an owner's representative. The architect found the structure to be in good condition for a building of that age and stated that a renovation or relocation of the structure to be reasonable options. At the hearing on May 14th, 2025, the commission encouraged the applicant to renovate or relocate the current structure on site and stated that the commission would be willing to lift the demolition delay upon review of satisfactory development plans. The applicant did not express any interest in working with the commission at the time or any time since. The house under consideration is a highly visible and familiar structure on Massachusetts Ave. It sits prominently at the end of Prospect Street and marks the beginning of a series of residential structures. Its location provides an edge between the residential area and Acton Center's commercial and school districts. The removal of the house and replacement with a parking lot would extend the commercial feel into the residential area. Acton prides itself for its place in American history, and that feeling is reinforced by an abundance of historic structures, districts, and monuments. With the removal of each antique house, stone wall, or monument, a bit of Acton's history is taken, and the town's legacy is diminished. With each demolition, Acton slips closer to being just another anonymous suburban community. We recommend that the select board request that the owners of 457 Massachusetts Ave practice adaptive reuse and look for ways to renovate or relocate the original house to both suit their needs and preserve a bit of Acton's history. And that's signed, respectfully submitted, William Dickinson, Chair, Acton Historical Commission.
Okay, thank you. Do you have other comments, Fran?
Not at the moment. I think I said what I had to say. I'd like to see a smaller structure and an incorporation of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Fran. If you want me to just touch on kind of the incorporation and the size of the project.
Sure.
So just incorporating the existing structure from a site perspective would just be difficult to maintain kind of safe ADA compliant grades, given that kind of exaggerated change in grade I discussed earlier. And then from kind of a size perspective, you know, there's a certain square footage that Primrose really requires to make the best daycare services that they possibly can, you know, to fill a certain number of seats and to operate, you know, at that high quality fashion. And, you know, our job from a site engineering perspective is to really see, you know, can we do that safely? Can we do it efficiently? And, you know, based on kind of the materials we provided, as well as the initial peer review we've received, you know, we feel that we can operate, you know, safely, efficiently on this site.
Okay, thank you. Comments from other members of the board?
Jim.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I got two questions. So during the demolition delay, what the applicants are supposed to be doing during that time is either doing the incorporation of the, you know, either the entire building or the facade into the project, or find, you know, a buyer who can relocate the building. I think we've heard about the first one, which was, I would summarize as, we wouldn't make enough money to provide the kind of, you know, the kind of extra expenses that go along with doing high quality daycare. And of course the site issues, which I think is even a more compelling argument. But I was wondering about the progress on finding an alternate buyer who could move the building.
So I'll speak to that quickly. So my understanding generally of demolition delay bylaws and my reading of the bylaw is that if we want the commission to visit the demolition delay, those are the sorts of things we need to do to convince them to lift the demolition delay early. we don't expect the commission to lift the demolition delay early, and so I don't actually think there's a legal requirement to do that. And I just say that just for clarity, not to be to suggest in any way we're not interested or willing to try to cooperate on this. So Adam spoke to just the logistical impediments to incorporating it on site. It just doesn't work. I did have a conversation during a project meeting earlier. We did discuss doing some outreach. We still obviously have 9 months to before the demolition delay expires, and we are happy to put out some ads, consult with the town, with the commission, anyone that we can be pointed to see if anyone's interested in moving the structure. I will say it's my understanding that there isn't a great deal left of this building that's actually very historic. And so I don't know what the likelihood is of someone going to the expense of trying to move it and put it back together and find a location that could be used for other development. So that's only by way of managing expectations, but we are happy to do that outreach and see if we can find anyone who is interested in doing that.
Thanks. One more question, Dean?
Yep.
Okay. We'll get into this further if there's a fossil fuel variance requested. But I was wondering, as a sort of point of information first, is there something unique you're doing that would require natural gas? I mean, with the majority of building types in Acton, it seems like, either air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps are a perfectly good solution for heating and cooling. And that keeping natural gas out of the building for uses like cooking or whatever is just a matter of safety and health. And you might have said something about the waiver during the earlier part of the presentation that I missed. So just wanted to get your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, we can touch base with the team and get together with the architect as well as the MEPs to kind of discuss that further and then get back to the board with kind of a better answer for you.
Great. Thanks. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Dean, I have a couple more questions, unless you want to ask yours first.
No, I think most of my points are being covered, so go ahead, Alyssa.
Okay. So first, I just wanted to touch on David's comment about the complexity of traffic circulation if there would be a no left turn from this driveway, related to folks who might be dropping off students at a school on the nearby campus, or the adjacent campus rather. I have a serious concern about safety for those two driveways, creating conflict with vehicles at drop off and pickup, because folks that are leaving the junior high driveway may be wanting to turn right on Mass Ave, while folks leaving the proposed driveway from the site at 457 might be wanting to turn left. So you've got two driveways very close together where cars might be turning in the opposite direction. So I think that comment from GCG is a really prudent one to have no left turn allowed. And I do agree with David that it would be wonderful to have an easement with the district. And I suggested that when the applicant was before the board for the sewer units last summer, to have the driveway for the junior high be a shared one and have the entrance to the parking be at the top. One of the things that was mentioned in the design review board memo was the incredible investment that the town and the state has made in the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project to improve pedestrian accessibility and safety, and to have a driveway that families who live in nearby neighborhoods cannot walk up easily. Pushing a stroller to drop their kids off is really a lost opportunity. There's a crosswalk on the east side of the junior high driveway that can be used. Students walk up that sidewalk. It's an easy grade, so I think that is definitely worth pursuing an easement with the school district. I would like to see, I know there was a note about needing a confidentiality agreement in order to share this, but I would like to see the pro forma, the financials for the applicant to prove that a center this size is necessary for viability. I have not seen a purchase and sale agreement, so I don't know what the purchase price that has been negotiated with Common Ground is, but the property is currently assessed at just over $600,000. And I note that in 2024, Primrose purchased a property in Sudbury for $2.6 million, and there was a synagogue on site that they retrofitted to create a daycare center rather than demolishing the synagogue and building new. And that building is only 10,000 square feet. So I think it's really important for the board to have that pro forma information with whatever confidentiality agreements go along with it. I just have a couple of questions about the play area that I hope the applicant could answer. So you mentioned the northerly play area that's reserved for infants has an access that's from the exterior rather than from a doorway. And I think that's true for the southerly one as well. Yeah, it's at the bottom of the ramp. I did not see... except from the ramp in the southerly area, I didn't see a gate that would allow students and staff to exit in case of an emergency. If there was a fire at the building and they needed to, exit this play area to go across the street, I think that having a gate in that fence, just to make sure that there's, you've got lots of egresses for the building. You need at least two for safety. And I think that the play area fencing is the same. It would be great to have a second way in and out of that. So that's really a comment, not a question, unless I missed it. And then I did notice that there was artificial turf. And I'm wondering what material that is, because I saw some renderings and photos of centers and it looked like it was green, actual artificial turf, or is this proposed to be engineered wood chips or some other surface?
Yeah, so kind of starting with the question on the turf. So we did provide a detail in the site plans provided, but this is going to be an artificial turf. It is made by X-Grass. So it's been third-party tested to ensure that there's no PFAS or any other kind of harmful material. And then the infill they use for this, it's not your typical kind of athletic black pellets. It's called Envirofill. It's a kind of a coarse sand that's coated in a polymer to prevent like bacteria and compaction. And then kind of circling back to your second means of egress. So on other projects, we have kind of coordinated with the kind of fire department on implementing kind of a second means of egress. So we'd be happy to work with Acton Fire to come up with a safe play area for them.
Okay, thanks for the detail on the artificial turf. Although polymer doesn't sound great to me.
Yeah, no, we'd be
There's
happy to
enough
provide
plastic in the world.
I gotcha. No, we'd be happy to provide all of the spec sheets. This is the safest kind of we found in the industry. But we'd be happy to provide more cut sheets and those third-party testing results.
Okay, that'd be great. And one other thing that I would love to have the board provided is additional elevations, and that was mentioned in the GCG review. The one that you showed earlier of the building and the parking lot, not this one, but the other one that's sort of more of a street view. It doesn't look like this is an actual realistic view because there's trees added on the left-hand side that look like they're in the middle of the road. So I think we need an elevation that shows the detail of the retaining wall so that people can get a better understanding of what the street view will be. And also I know that there are some street trees that are proposed to be removed. So I'd love to see the elevations, the spec sheets on the materials for the artificial turf, and also the pro forma. And I would also like Fran, I would love to see the house incorporated into the structure. And I understand what you're saying about the grading, and that makes it challenging. But we have so many adaptive reuse examples here in Acton, including a child care center on Central Street, infant toddler children's center. And there's one next door in Boxborough, the Taylor School, which is right off of Mass Ave. So they're modern additions that have been added directly connecting to the historic homes. But the project that I mentioned earlier by Common Ground Development, the current owner, that was retention of the historic home, but not attached to the new structure, the housing. So it was the home being used for offices and then a parking lot and then the building at the back of the property. And maybe that could be shifted so that the building is in the middle and the parking is behind, and that might give you some more flexibility, with the dumpster location and access to the parking lot and the grading that's required for ADA. So I would love to see a little more creative thinking around, working in partnership with the town to really hone in on the town's commitment to preserving our very few remaining historic structures, and also the importance of the pedestrian accessibility that the town values, especially with the Kelly's Corner project, the infrastructure improvement project.
Okay, thanks for the feedback, Alyssa. Just kind of circling back to the pedestrian access. We are happy to provide kind of sidewalks along Massachusetts Avenue here. I'm not sure if that's what you were getting towards, or if there's something a little more specific you were looking for.
That absolutely a sidewalk extension in front of the property, but also I'm thinking of all of the families who live close by who might want to walk to the center, pushing their kids in strollers, and to be able to walk up that driveway, especially if there's no sidewalk on the driveway. It's, they're going to have to navigate the vehicles coming in and out, but also the steep grade, which is why I think that an easement and sharing the driveway with the junior high would really be ideal.
Okay, yeah, we'll get together with the team and kind of review your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from select board members? If not, David, do we have anybody waiting in the wings that wants to make comments?
There is one hand raised.
Okay, let's let that person in.
Ron Loughlin, you're able to unmute now.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, so I'm in a butter and I sit directly behind this lot. So if you look at the map you were just displaying, you go to the top of the map on the north side. Is that black dotted line in the picture there, is that the lot line?
That's the property line,
The
correct?
property line, yeah. So my property goes all the way to the left. It's a 1.92 acres. It goes all the way to the left. I own the barn. It's not showing up in your, oh, there it is. Okay, there you go. So don't move there. If you look, let me see. Yeah, there it is. That's it. That's my house. My barn is right by the hand there. There's a path that goes right along the project site, and all the neighborhood kids actually come up my driveway and walk to the junior high school to that curve there. So my biggest concern is, and there's been expansion several times in the 31 years I've lived in my house. I built the house, that the trees will be cleared to the lot line. The junior high school did it. The parking lot there on the top used to be a lot deeper with trees, but they cleared almost to the lot line. And also that house to the left there that's got no trees around it, same thing. He did kind of a clear cut right to the lot line. So my ask and my concern is that all the trees will be gone along my lot line. There's a classic property line of, stone, rock, that goes along that whole distance. Is the plan to cut all the trees right to the lot line?
Yeah, so the plan is, you can see better here on the demolition plan, the trees to be removed. So there are a few kind of along this lot line that are to be remained.
I'm looking at the top.
But kind of everything within this limit of disturbance is proposed to be removed.
Are the ones along the top with the X's, are those all supposed to be taken out?
Correct.
Oh, wow. So it's all the trees right to the lot line. Oh man. Yeah, because that's right behind my yard and right behind my barn, basically. That top corner is, so it looks like every tree along the lot line is going to be taken down.
Yeah, just so acknowledging that you're kind of the immediate abutter, we would be happy to kind of work with you to try to beef up the kind of landscaping around that property line there.
Yeah.
That's something we'd be happy to kind of discuss further after this.
That'd be great. I'd love to discuss that if possible. And you also mentioned the lighting. Is the idea that the lights stay on all through the night, or do they come off at some point?
No, so typically the lighting turns off about an hour after operations end.
Understood. Okay, that's fine. If we could talk more about, the actual lot line itself, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know it's been more than 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Lockland, or are you going to hook up with the architects and have some discussions? I guess we've lost them. Okay. Do we have anyone else, David, online waiting to speak?
No hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I just brought Ron Lockland back in to answer your question.
Okay.
Sorry, my quick question was timing on this. When is the actual proposed construction time? Do you know?
So the demolition delay ends late November, I believe. Okay. So I would have to discuss with the team to, confirm, but I would imagine springtime is kind of when we would start moving.
Okay.
Springtime.
It'd be great if we could talk about the lot line itself, but I really appreciate your offer. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, unless there's any other comments, I know we want to give the applicant time to review our third-party review point. I know we've raised a number of issues. I think we're definitely going to have to continue this to a subsequent meeting to give the applicant time to respond. And I will ask the development team, how quickly do you think you'll be ready to respond and come back to see us again?
I imagine within a few weeks we'd be able to get revised materials over to your team. I'm not sure if that would give you guys enough time to kind of review. I don't know if you prefer giving your peer reviewer enough time to follow up again.
Yeah, let me check and see what our schedule is like when we could be able to get you back in anyway. We're fast approaching town meeting, so things are getting a little
Gotcha.
busy right now.
Yeah, we've been coordinating with the planning department. We can kind of follow up with them after this hearing.
Okay,
I think we need to have a date certain, though, to continue this hearing, Mr. Chair.
yes, we do.
I was also going to suggest, Mr. Chair, that Nate's here from planning, and I didn't know if there was anything that he wanted to address that we may have missed.
Good point.
And also he could help with the timeline.
Okay, good point. Nate?
Sure. I think there was just one item from the planning division memo that the board might want to consider tonight, since the applicant will be revising all the plans, and that was one of the waivers or anticipated waivers, which was a parking proof plan. If you'd like me to get into that and what that is, I'd certainly be happy to.
Yes, why don't you do that, Nate?
Sure. So one of the requirements that they are unable to meet is the separation of parking cells. Our bylaw requires any parking lot over 40 spaces to be divided up into 2 cells, which looks to be pretty infeasible on this site. And so in that case, the parking proof plan just wouldn't work. They wouldn't be able to prove that they could do that. And so we've asked if the select board can consider waiving it.
Okay. Thank you. Reaction from my colleagues about a waiver of the parking proof plan.
My reaction is I'm wondering how a removal of some of the spaces that we talked about right at the beginning, operationally, they can manage with 42 spaces if that's going to impact it. And also considering maybe a rearrangement of where the building and the parking lot and the play area is on the site plan, if the applicant would consider retaining that home. Which reminds me, I would like to address Mr. Silverstein's suggestion that his understanding was that there's not much of historical significance remaining in that home. The Historical Commission does not ever impose a demo delay on a building that's not significant. And they were, it was in good shape. The architects, the historic architects on the commission felt that it could be renovated. Obviously, it would need some money put into it. But their finding was that the demolition of the building would be detrimental to the historical heritage and resources of the town of Acton. So there is absolutely historic value of that structure.
Chair, if I could just really quickly, I didn't mean to suggest that, I didn't make that statement in the context of suggesting the building isn't worth trying to save. I made it in the context of trying to find someone willing to undertake the effort and expense of moving it. And just in my experience, I've been involved in projects where that has happened, and the entities that I'm familiar with that tend to be willing to take those projects on look for, just in my experience, buildings that have had fewer alterations made over time. So I didn't in any way mean to suggest that my understanding of the current condition of the building undermines its significance, just the likelihood of finding someone willing to take that on.
Thanks for that. That's definitely a distinction that I didn't catch. I appreciate that.
Fran, I see you've got your hand raised.
I just wanted to say that I'm not ready to vote on a waiver tonight. I'd like to see the project come back with dimensions tweaked, perhaps. And it says on the building here it's 47 parking spaces, and I think there were saying 46 parking spaces. So I would like to see this come back. So I'm not ready to vote for that tonight.
Okay, David.
Yeah, I said that I would be willing. Doesn't have to be tonight, but I'd be willing to waive the parking proof plan. But I'm seeing, based on what I've heard tonight, my own feelings is that I'm seeing two conditions on the at least two conditions on the site plan special permit. One is a walkway from the sidewalk to the building, and the second is the interconnection to the school driveway. Those are both indirectly related to the parking lot. So, for different reasons, I agree with Fran. I think we're not ready to consider that tonight. I want to see a plan, or at least an agreement to the condition that we have the walkway from the sidewalk to the building, and that we have an interconnection to the school.
Okay, thank you. So Nate, with those thoughts in mind, I think, we're not going to be voting on a waiver tonight. What do you think is a reasonable time frame to get this back to continue the hearing until?
I believe we could turn it around in 2 to 3 weeks. That would give you guys, 1 to 2 weeks to review. I believe the next hearing is March 16th. I think that would give us kind of enough time to make our revisions and then recirculate it with you guys to review yourselves.
Okay, thank you. John or Lisa or Tom, what does our schedule look like for the 16th, or do we need to push it off further?
On the 16th, it looks like we have time at 6:45 to continue the hearing.
Okay.
I move to continue this public hearing to March 16th at 6:45 p.m.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to continue until 6:45 on March, whatever.
16.
16, yep. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nickel,
Yes.
and I also say aye. So we're agreed unanimously on the continuance.
Okay, very good. I'd like to thank the applicant for coming in, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So, moving ahead, we have a 7 o'clock hearing for a common victular license. And I will read the legal notice. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on February 23rd, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204, Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually on the application of Orange Door Hospitality, LLC, DBA Acton Coffee, located at 525 Massachusetts Ave, Unit 103, Acton, Mass., under Chapter 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws for a common victular license. The application can be expected at Town Hall during normal business hours. Login instructions for computers can be found here. From a computer, please click on the link to join the public meeting, www.actonma.gov/meetings/SB. For telephone, dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID number 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. So, is the applicant present And our apologies for being a half hour delayed.
Mr. Chair, I'll promote Chris Powell. Chris, you should be able to speak and unmute yourself.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, Chris.
How's
again, our apologies for
no worries.
late on
Lisa
this.
warned me that it might run a little late, so I was hanging on and I was interested in the conversation, so all good.
So tell us about your project.
Sure. So my wife Meredith and I purchased Acton Coffee from the previous owners in November of this past year, and I've been running it since in the same form and function largely as it existed before. We previously owned and operated Orange Door Kitchen in Acton that closed during COVID, sadly. And we've been kind of looking for the next brick and mortar food business ever since. We are Acton residents. We live on Arlington Street in West Acton. The plans for the coffee shop are to largely operate as it always has. We're going to be doing a renovation in the coming months just to kind of spruce up the interior, think paint and furniture, nothing too structural or anything like that. And we are going to be expanding some food offerings to the extent that we can and things like that. So nothing dramatically different. If you all have been into Acton Coffee before, it is not going to change too much. But there will be some kind of new, fun, and exciting things, but that's largely the extent of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from select board members? I think everybody likes your operation because it's a great place to hang out. I've met with constituents there quite a bit, especially during the warmer months.
Yes. We are hoping to make it even more comfortable for that in the future.
Great. David, I think I saw you start to raise your hand.
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion if you're ready, Mr. Chair.
We're ready.
Okay, I move to approve the common vittler license for Orange Door Kitchen operating as Acton Coffee House at 525 Mass Ave.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other comments?
I just want to make a request to maintain the scones on your menu when you make those menu changes.
We will. I'm gonna. If anything, it'll replace something better. Nothing worse.
Okay.
Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault.
Aye.
Ms. Nickel.
Yes.
And I also say yes, so that's unanimous.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, and hopefully you'll continue to be successful.
Thank you all.
All right, item 6, discuss proposed DPW building facility project and vote on concept to bring to annual town meeting. John or Tom?
Sure. So I thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start, and then I'd ask for support from Deputy Town Manager and from yourself in discussing this concept that we're now recommending. The DPW project, as you know, we worked pretty hard to develop the design for what we thought we needed. Town meeting didn't support it, or didn't seem like they're going to support it last year, and so instead, we did some design work and some study work to see alternatives. Arrow Street did some really interesting analysis and determined that a few options. Ultimately, the board selected the option which has been referred to as 4B. 4B was to create a smaller version of some of the main components of the new building next to the existing building, and then to renovate the existing building for use as vehicle storage. This was seen as a compromise. This was seen as a way to advance new construction of some very critical components that we're deficient in right now, but also provide an opportunity for increased vehicle storage, which was one of the concerns that our operations team has. Excuse me. So there's been a lot of support for that. And I think that's the right move. I think one thing that we're asking the board to consider in how we advance this project is to break it into phases. When it came back to us from Arrow Street and when it's been presented by the DPW Building Committee and through any budget meetings up until just tonight, it's been discussed as a package. We would build a new building and at the same time design and renovate the existing building. And to me and to many of us, we feel like it'd be more advantageous to focus on just the building right now, the new building, and to break the project in phases. And to have phase one be to build the new building, which would be on the same site next to the existing building, and have it be constructed, and then let the community, let us, let the decision makers decide exactly what the renovation for the existing building would look like. Because it can go, you can do it, very minimally, and you can do it very extensively. And in the end, it's going to be the same footprint, and it's a pretty big investment. So rather than jumping into what that renovation looks like, I think the real need is to get the people and some of those support spaces into new facilities. And so the approach here would be use the funding that we have in the proposed capital plan to get to complete design of the new building and bidding, and be prepared to bring that to a town meeting that you're ready to, whether it be next annual or something sooner, likely next annual. But I guess I can rely on you both for strategy on that one. So that's the concept. I think some of the benefits of this new concept that we're recommending is it's better focused on something that there seems to be pretty good consensus on what we need. We need better facilities for the staffing and the people that work in this operation, and better facilities for the equipment mechanics that are critical to keeping the systems going. And it kind of sets aside a part of the project that continues to be discussed and debated, I think, more than the other, which is the vehicle storage. We can still use the existing building. I think as part of phase one, what we would do is go all in on the new building and then say, and hey, architects and structural engineers, what are the critical life safety improvements that we need to make to that structure so it doesn't fall down? And they may say, here's a few things you can add to the big project, but not a full big renovation, which is what I think was envisioned in part of 4B. So that's the concept. We have been working with Weston and Sampson on what the new building would look like based on the 4B concept, and I think it's advanced pretty well. It's going to meet the needs of the department now and in the future, and I think we have a shot at moving this thing forward. So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to be supported by my colleagues or answer any questions.
Tom, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, sure. The only thing I would add to what John had said is John had shared a floor plan earlier, and that's something that's been worked on with the DPW director to try to maximize the potential of what 4B would look like to ensure that the operational needs are met inside the building. And it seems like those discussions are going pretty well to the point where we're pretty confident that what is in 4B will be able to carry on operations moving forward and support the entire DPW outside, of course, of the proper vehicle storage. We are working with Weston Sampson to get cost estimates for the final design, and we're pretty confident as well that that will be covered in the capital amount that's requested.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Let me weigh in just a bit on this. We've had a working group going sort of simultaneous to all of this. And I've attended most of those meetings. We've gone over and sort of tweaked everything as carefully as we can. I think the plan that John sent out to you today that looks like the latest that we kind of went over last week. Certainly there might be some minor changes, but I think, the major elements are there. I think this is a building that, it certainly doesn't answer all of our needs for the long term, because we still have some unaddressed needs, obviously, with long-term vehicle storage of, larger equipment. But this gets us a good chunk of the way there. I think something that everyone has agreed on, including most of the finance committee, is that it's most important to provide adequate workspace for all of our employees. And this does that. The existing building is in tough shape, but frankly, until we get some kind of community-wide consensus as to which way we're going, I'd hate to spend a few $1 million into a building that, maybe in 5 to 10 years we might want to tear down. So I think let's focus on what we know we need and what I think we've got a lot of consensus on from everyone. This final design and this concept of basically putting all of our eggs in one basket on this building is not something that has been reviewed by the building committee at this point. But they have been very much in favor of the whole concept of 4B. And since we're basically going to stick with the 4B concept, it's just a phasing matter and looking at budgetary issues. I think I'll get their support as well. I would propose after we get some resolution tonight, Tom and I will set up a meeting with the building committee and go over it, and this will give them a chance to see the latest tweaks on the plan for the new building. But I think it's a reasonable path forward. The longer we delay on this, the more expensive the building is going to be. And we keep making the building smaller and it keeps getting more expensive on a square foot basis just because that's the nature of construction. So I'd like to move ahead quickly with this. The existing building can be used in its present configuration. There's probably some minor tweaks and structural changes that can be made that might give us a few better options for storing a few more vehicles inside, but those are kind of minor items from my point of view. And one of the other things that I know we were very disappointed in with our earlier plans, that we kind of backed away from having a formal wash bay in any of the buildings. I think by delaying this, and eventually we're going to end up having to do something with a big parking facility for all of our equipment. And that would be probably a good time to be able to add in that wash bay in that, whatever the new structure is going to be for the storage of the heavy equipment. And obviously the new building for equipment, not the building that we're talking about right now, could be a fairly simple structure with fairly straightforward HVAC concerns and that sort of thing. So it could be a pretty good operation. And so that's where I am on this. I would be happy to hear any comments from my colleagues. Alyssa.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm really, really happy with this proposal. Kudos to the brains that came up with it, because I was a little disappointed thinking about the wisdom and the responsibility of spending, even if it was just a few $1 million on renovating the existing building for fleet storage. And like you said, Dean, a building that would need to be torn down later, or we would be, stuck with something that continues to be inadequate for our needs. So I think that focusing the project on the office and crew and mechanic spaces is a good one. I do have well, let me just finish that thought by saying back in 2021, when the original feasibility study was done, or maybe I can't even call it original because there may have been one even before that, but the the different options of renovating the building or adding on to it or demolishing and building new, those were already looked at, and it was determined that it was not going to be cost effective to renovate the existing building, just not a wise use of taxpayer dollars. So I think that this brings us back to that finding. But in terms of what Mr. Datar mentioned at the beginning of a cost impact to taxpayers, I know he was referring to the difference between natural gas and an air source heat pump, that cost difference to communicate to taxpayers. But I'm also thinking about the tax impact. What we're bringing to town meeting this year is just design money for the project. And while we might have a cost estimate for the total project cost, I don't think that back in 2023, when we got the 1.225 million for the design that we brought to the ballot and town meeting last year, we had the tax impact. Is that something that we want to consider, or do we just want to focus on the design cost and getting that passed at town meeting and focus on a tax impact once we have the 40% design and a more accurate cost estimate?
So I think the proposal that we have before that's on the warrant, the draft warrant, is to use $900,000 to complete a design. We were initially thinking 40 to 50% because we were trying to plan a renovation at the same time. And so that's why I said focusing on the new building allows us to get more out of this 900,000 and get it potentially all the way to full design. I don't think, however, that before April we would have any additional cost estimate information to be able to use to make a tax impact analysis available. I mean, Tom, we're not expecting any additional cost outs, are we?
Not at this time, not anything that would be concrete.
Okay, then I would just say in the warrant summary, it would be helpful, I think, for taxpayers, for voters who come to town meeting to understand exactly what that 900,000 gets, if it's more than 40%, if it's 75%, and also a note saying that we'll have accurate cost estimates later if we don't have them at that point when the warrant goes to print. Just so that question is anticipated. We provide an answer so people don't have to be left wondering about that, because they're definitely going to wonder about the tax impact since we've already communicated the tax impact of the previous proposal. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
Yes, a couple things. I think this is a good plan. It shows a best effort to reduce cost at this time by separating the project into phases. And also, unlike some phase designs, I don't think this really increases the overall cost except for the normal year-to-year delay of the second piece of this. I also will note that this gives us further time. You know, the others have mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it in a little bit different way, to evaluate the pros and cons of renovating the existing building, which might last 10 or 15 years, versus building a new garage. I'm talking purely on the garage side, right? It gives us more time to decide whether to renovate the existing garage or build a new garage. There are some on the finance committee that have proposed to make that we have a prefab metal garage, which is an easy structure to erect, right? And that kind of thing. And that probably would last 50 years as opposed to 10 to 15 years. And, you know, this gives us, you know, after we complete the proposed building, that gives us time after that to decide how to proceed for the garage part of the project, which I think is good. I also think that for town meeting, and I'm a little confused now as to what we're putting in the warrant summary. I think that there needs to be in either the presentation or the summary, maybe both, an estimate of where we started in terms of cost. Like the proposal that we were going to bring last year and town meeting was not in favor of. And then where we were with 4B and where we are with the building without a garage, with no garage improvements. So I think, we don't need exact numbers and exact tax impact, but I think we need to be able to present at town meeting ballpark estimates of what the town is designing.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, Alyssa.
As usual, what David said makes me think about something else. David, just because you've stated, and it's part of the public record now, that we might consider a prefab building, I just want to make clear that whether or not that is actually a possibility in this meeting. Because what I have heard when it's come up in the past is that we cannot use such a simple to erect and cost effective building because the public works is an emergency function and needs to have that specific building code, which I don't know. I just remember the number 4, building code 4. I heard Tom mention it at the last finance committee meeting where they were discussing this.
Right. I guess I shouldn't have maybe mentioned a solution. I was just trying to note that one member of the finance committee especially was talking about a prefab structure. Certainly a metal shelled building can meet that code. Whether it depends on what you mean by prefab. Right, and whether the side panels come and you bolt them together, or whether there's more assembly done in a factory, and we're obviously getting way ahead of ourselves here. So yeah, I shouldn't have said prefab. I did want to point out that at least one member of the finance committee was suggesting that if for a garage only replacement, there could be a simpler design.
Yeah, it's worth clarifying that the proposal that I brought forward was to continue with 4B, but just to do it in 2 phases.
Right. Okay. Unless there's any other comments, Fran.
Sorry, well, you know where my loyalty lies, but I'm ready to join my colleagues and accepting this design. So hoping for the future that it won't be hard to add 18 more parking spots and a wash bay. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So I will actually propose a motion. I would move that the select board support the concept plan that the town manager has circulated today, showing that we focus our work initially on the construction of the 4B portion of the portion of the 4B project that focuses on workshop space, admin, and support services, and that we do not focus on the storage area. I don't know if that gives you the right latitude, John, or not.
I think supporting the concept of breaking into 2 phases would be helpful to include.
Okay, that we break the project into 2 phases, and we focus our work initially is on the new building, and we delay work on the second portion of the building, the equipment storage area.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nichol,
Yes.
and I also say aye, so we're unanimous on this.
Okay, great. We'll be advancing that. I'll keep people appraised as to any more information that we generate in the next couple of weeks. Moving ahead to item 7, discuss town manager's revised recommended budget and capital plan and vote to transmit to finance committee. John.
Thank you. So the required process under the town charter is that the town manager presents a budget some number of days before town meeting, and that the select board review it and then sign off on it or adopt it or formally transmit it with their support to the finance committee, and you have to do that 60 days before town meeting. So you have until I think the second week of March or so to do that, maybe the first week of March. I'm proposing that you do it tonight. I think that we started talking about the FY27 budget in August, and we've been providing some pretty detailed data about the work that we did to prepare for the budget. We got some really valuable feedback from all of the board members throughout the months leading up to the January 5th presentation of the budget, and we got some feedback at the time since. There are 2 changes to the budget that we published today as a revised budget, and I wanted to walk you through those. I think that they are helping with some important priorities that we weren't able to address in the initial publishing of the budget. The first is health insurance. We did some analysis and we determined that we wouldn't need to increase our health insurance budget because we've been budgeting very conservatively in the previous 2 to 3 years. We also hadn't received our health insurance estimate yet from Maya. We did get that at the beginning of February, and it came in just over 10%, which is a little bit less than we were projecting. So that's good news. And as a result, we are able to reduce the health insurance line item by $100,000 and still be able to fund health insurance for employees next year and retirees. So that's $100,000 savings right there. With that, there is a $15,000 cost item that I kind of said no. I said no to a lot of staffing requests this year, and there was one in particular that I said no, but I think we can figure out a different way to pay for it, and we've been working on that, and it's complicated. So I think it'd be much easier if we could use the $15,000 from the $100,000 that we just saved to fund this position, and the position is just some staffing for the conservation office to help with maintenance and on upkeep at the Arboretum. The Arboretum is a very big project. It is maintained, I don't know the percentage, but I would say more than 80% by volunteers, maybe more than that. And that's not sustainable necessarily for the long term. It's certainly very valuable, and people take pride in volunteering and keeping that property up. But having a part-time position that works in town hall or wherever they work, and it's their job to kind of help out with things that are going on over there. It's something we've been trying to fit into the budget for the past few years. It's relatively short money at $15,000, and it's not going to incur any new benefit costs or any new overhead that a full-time position would. So the 2 changes are net out to about an $85,000 decrease in the budget. And those changes are reflected in the published document that we put online today. There's a couple little minor adjustments to some of the narratives, and we updated some of the information in the opening pages just to reflect the new number. And there was one minor adjustment in the nursing budget where we are calculating the offset from Littleton differently, so we fixed that. Stuff that anyone would notice, but I just wanted to mention it in case you did. And in any event, the new recommended town manager's budget is $85,000 less than the one that was presented on January 5th. And I'd ask for the board to consider adopting that and transmitting to the finance committee.
All right, well, Thank you, John. You've continued to work on this. And it seems like you've pulled it off once again. Comments from select board members? Jim?
I've spent a lot of time in the Arboretum back in the Land Stewardship Committee days, and there was always a gap between what the Arboretum really needed, especially in the formal parts, and what could be provided. So there were always things being left undone because, volunteers can only do so much, and they can only, they're only able to take on a certain level of planning capability, and direct, day to day, making sure things get done. The Friends of the Acton Arboretum do an amazing job in planning and volunteering, but there's still, there is a gap there that has been filled in the past by, an amazing set of, occasional volunteers and occasional staff, but we don't have that right now. And it's such a gem. I'm very much in favor of, this is very short money, and it'll really help with helping the Arboretum live up to its promise.
Okay. Other comments? Alyssa?
I just want to say that I'm very happy that our health insurance rates did not increase as much as we expected them to. I support these changes.
All right, can we have a motion? David?
I move to transmit the revised town manager's budget published today to the Finance Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? Okay, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenal?
Aye.
Ms. Nickel?
Yes.
And I also say yes, so we're unanimous again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
That's a nice thing to have off your desk a little bit, John. Item 8, Acton Leadership Group discussion.
Okay, well, the last time we had an ALG meeting, I think the deficit was about $130,000. I just mentioned that the town managers, or that the board just transmitted a budget to the Finance Committee that knocks $85,000 from that deficit. So we also heard from the Minuteman Regional School District that their budget had been adjusted after the state aid numbers came out. I think it reduced by another 25,000. So the deficit at this point, I think we'll be able to resolve it before the next meeting, which is scheduled for early March. We have a meeting this week, but we're not going to talk about the ALG plan. So I think overall it's pretty good news in terms of the deficit. We also did some work based on the Finance Committee's request, or some of the members of the Finance Committee, on kind of forecasting out years for the town, and the school did the same. School district did the same thing. And we always try to use round numbers when we're projecting out future years, because there's so much planning that goes into every budget year that to try to plan what FY30 is going to look like, it's hard to spend a lot of time doing that. But it does make sense to forecast big numbers that we can. Health insurance, pension, debt, certain things we can project, even salaries to some degree. So we did that. And I think I've shared it with the Finance Committee. I think they like it. We'll see. But I think in terms of ALG plan, that's where we're at. I'm hoping that this year there's a consensus on the whole plan, and we can bring it forward to town meeting. Were there any other matters from ALG that were held over from last meeting that we're going to discuss tonight?
Not that I can think of. The one point that curiosity, Mr. Cote gave his presentation at the beginning of our meeting talking about the school's budget, and told us that they're still looking at a 14% increase in their healthcare costs. And I'd be interested to see if that's based on a quote that they got that's similar to the one that we've got, or what. I know that's not something that you can weigh in on particularly, John, but I think it's certainly an item that I intend to raise at the ALG meeting to see, if we're down a 10% increase, it would make sense to me that the school district would be somewhat similar.
They are, but their original projection was 18. So coming down to 14 is a similar reduction, which they shared at the budget Monday. David, do you remember, are those the right numbers, that they were told to expect an 18% increase and that it came in at 14?
I don't remember exactly. That's approximately
roughly
correct. Yes, and I will say that their numbers don't mirror ours exactly in terms of the numbers of retirees and other things that they have. And I do know from that we heard on Budget Monday and at other times that Maya had told them that their premiums in previous years, since we converted from the trust, did not cover their outlays. So Maya told them that their reductions were not going to be as much. So anyway, but that's certainly something you can ask again at ALG. Both Sherry and Peter should be able to answer that.
Okay, great. I don't have any other questions or comments about ALG, unless somebody else does. Okay, we'll move on. Item 9, review and take positions on town meeting articles. John, do you want to put this on the screen, or you want me to just read them off?
Yeah, let me just, Tom, are you still locked out of the, or can you bring that up?
I'll try one more time.
Okay. I think, so as mentioned, we're getting a jump on the warrant this year, both to make these meetings more effective and productive, knocking warrant articles out, but also for the finance committee to give them an earlier look at all the different articles that are being proposed. As of right now, we have 40 articles with a couple of placeholders that are empty in there, but 40 all in. And tonight we're bringing forward a handful that are ready. This is pretty early for articles to be ready, but we feel these are ready. Excuse me. And I think we did provide the text of the articles in the packet. They mostly are consent items that you'll recognize, and I could go through them. So Article 29 is the article that the board or that the town looks at every year to authorize the select board to enter into easements as it relates to utility projects. Article 30 is authorizing the town to accept the highway reimbursement program money from Chapter 90. Article 31 is to appropriate insurance proceeds that we may receive throughout the year. Article 32 is to authorize acceptance of federal reimbursement aid. That's another standard one. Article 33, authorize appropriation of performance bonds, standard one. 34, authorize sale of foreclosed properties, again, every year. And then the next three are new. So number 35 is to authorize the long-term agreement with ActonTV. So if you recall, ActonTV has an MOA to operate, and they use the PEG revenue that we get as a town. We give it to them, and they run ActonTV. They do a great job. The agreement expired at the end of this fiscal year. We renegotiated a new agreement, and because of some things that we've understood more recently than we maybe understood in the past, we learned that we had to bring this agreement to town meeting because it was longer than 3 years. So what we did was we authorized a 3-year agreement, which was subject to approval from town meeting for the full duration, which was intended to be 10 years. So this is really just asking town meeting, hey, town meeting, would you authorize the select board to have a 10-year agreement with ActonTV instead of a 3-year? And so that's what that would do. Article 37 is, there's a lot of different things in Mass General laws, and we have a handful that we're going to bring forward to you. We have two tonight. There's a lot of things that Mass General laws requires you to adopt from town meeting before you can implement in your community. And there's several that we're going to do. The first one we're proposing is Chapter 258, Section 9, which allows the town to indemnify municipal employees. Anyone that works for the town, including you all, are indemnified for things that you do in certain situations as a municipal official. But you're not individually indemnified if someone decides to take that path. And so just to help with recruitment and retention of both staff and volunteers, but primarily for staff, we're asking the town to adopt this section, which would allow the select board to indemnify municipal employees. Article 38, this is, does anyone know what tailings are? They're the leftover expenses, they're leftover. So we write a bunch of, Patrick McIntyre, our treasurer collector, talked about how he's taking some different approaches to managing the money that we spend and how we keep it. Every month we write dozens or maybe hundreds of checks to different vendors, whether it's for new pens or a consulting service. Every once in a while, those vendors just never cashed a check for some reason. And this allows us to do something with those. Keep it, I suppose. Tom, do you remember what that does?
Yes. So this gives the town the mechanism to be able to reclaim those checks after a period of time. There's a couple different things you have to do to meet that. You have to post them. You have to notify or attempt to notify the individuals who have the outstanding checks. You have to post it on the website. You have to put it in a local newspaper, or I think Acton Exchange would qualify as a local news source. It's typically a 60-day windows, and then it continues on. And then at the end of that period, you're able to then cancel the check and then reclaim the cash, and that goes into your next year's free cash review from the state. So this would give the town that opportunity. There's about $26,000 that are outstanding that would be subject to potentially being reclaimed through this process.
So those are the articles that we have ready for you. They are written out in the packet if you wanted to review the language tonight, or if you're comfortable. What we're asking you to do is tell us any questions you have about these articles, but more importantly, asking you to take a vote to recommend or not recommend them, which would then go in the warrant, which says the select board recommends this 5-0 or 4-1 or whatever you decide.
Okay. Questions, Alyssa?
I have a question about a few of them. The first one, I noticed Article 35, the language is not about ActonTV, what's included in the meeting packet. It's about foreclosed properties. So I'm comfortable with the amendment to the memorandum of agreement that we have, the long-term agreement that we have with ActonTV. I just wanted to point out that the language in the summary is not related to ActonTV.
Tom, if you unshare, I will share the full text of that. That's my bad for having the wrong one in the packet. I'll do that right now.
I mean, the warrant, the motion is what we're voting to recommend, not the summary. So I don't necessarily need to see this summary. Because the motion is there about ActonTV.
this is now showing both correctly.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. So my understanding of Article 37 is a little bit different than what you explained, John. I thought that the town indemnified municipal officers that are serving as volunteers under Section 13, but not yet employees, and that's why we wanted to make this change. But what you're saying is it's a difference between we're all covered now in our role, but what we're adding with Section 9 is as an individual. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's indemnifying employees from suffering personal financial loss from legal actions brought against them as individuals for performing their official duties. So if someone didn't like what I did as town manager, they decided to sue me personally, this would allow the board to indemnify me.
And currently, right now, not even volunteers have that. Is that correct? So this would be adding a protection to both paid employees and unpaid employees?
That is a distinction that I shouldn't have mentioned earlier because I'm not sure about it.
Okay. Maybe I could just get clarification on that. And it's not an issue of whether I'm going to support it or not, just wanting to have accurate info. And the last one, I had a question about Article 38, and Tom may have just answered it by saying that Acton Exchange might be an acceptable news source. Because my question was whether it's similar to hearing notifications that need to be in a print source, or if online is sufficient.
Yeah, we'll follow whatever we're required to. But I think, we try to do it the least expensive way. I think we did do Action Unlimited for quite a while, and it's worked out pretty well. But if we're allowed to do it online, we would do that, certainly.
All right, thank you.
Jim?
Select board assignments. These seem to be done based on last year, where because Fran was the chair, she got a whole bunch of miscellaneous articles assigned to her. What is the point at which we're going to figure out select board assignments? Maybe that's a question for Dean.
So I've thought about this for a couple of the major articles, and I think at our meeting, maybe as early as next Monday, we can talk about it in more depth. But I tend to point these things towards folks that are the subject matter experts. If it's a town hall HVAC thing, that's kind of got David's name on it. A lot of the planning board stuff is kind of what I would point towards you, Jim.
Yeah. I'm happy with just hearing that. We'll talk about it next Monday.
Yeah. I think we'll be able to. John and Alyssa and I have a agenda setting meeting tomorrow, so maybe we can come up with a list and we can start to check some of these things off, so you can start fixating on your presentations.
Exactly. Yeah. If I'm going to be nervous, I like to have something specific to be nervous about.
Okay. Yeah. The free-floating anxiety is never a good thing.
No.
All right. So I would be willing to entertain a motion for these items. We might be able to do it all at once.
I think we can do it all at once, only if it turns out that it's unanimous.
Okay.
Well. So, that would be my preference, because otherwise I think that we need to be able to say that it's not unanimous and it's 4-1 or 3-2 or recommended against. So in the hopes that it becomes unanimous, I would move that the select board recommend town meeting articles 29 through 38 inclusive.
David, sorry to interrupt. Would you be willing to consider just referring to the ones that are listed on the posted agenda? Because the only thing that I wanted to be certain of is that there's a chance that Article 37 might become 38 someday. And, you know, I do my best not for that not to happen, but it's crystal clear that we brought to you a package and asking you to support them. And if not, we can break them into pieces.
No, that sounds great. So I, in the hopes that it would be unanimous, I would move that we approve the set of warrant articles listed in the agenda today for recommendation from the select board.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye.
Ms. Nichol?
Yes.
And I also say yes. So we are unanimous.
Very good.
5-0.
Thank you.
All right. Item 10, approves sunsetting of Citizens Library Governance Advisory Committee. Alyssa?
Thank you. The last time I checked, I did not see my memo in the packet. Is that still correct, that it is absent? Because I just heard back from town council that everything is copacetic today. So I can either read it, it's only one page, or I could share if I have the ability to do that. What is your pleasure, Mr. Charter? You're muted.
You're muted.
It's not in the packet.
Yeah, why don't you read it, and then anybody listening will have the benefit of it as well.
Okay, that's perfect. All right. On February 3rd, at a meeting of the Citizens Library Governance Advisory Committee, members discussed the committee's prior work and consideration to disband, an eventuality conditioned on completing the tasks set to the committee established in its charge. Members representing the Citizens Library Board of Trustees, the Memorial Library Board of Trustees, library staff, the Select Board, and the Friends of Acton Libraries determined that the tasks set to the committee had been completed. The committee was charged with recommending a structural governance solution for the Citizens Library Board of Trustees, specifically one that would, quote, enhance the library patron and staff experience and maintain a close and collaborative relationship between the two libraries, end quote. The recommendation of combining the trustee boards of the Citizens Library and Acton Memorial Library was reached by consensus of the committee and presented to the Select Board on December 16th, 2024. This proposal was accepted by the Select Board as well as the two library trustee boards and brought to town meeting in the form of a home rule petition to amend the Special Act of 1890, which created the Memorial Library Board of Trustees. The petition garnered an 84% positive vote at the annual town meeting on May 5th, 2025. The expansion of the Memorial Library Trustee Board from 9 to 12 members, an act further regulating appointments to the Acton Memorial Library, was enacted by the legislature on December 15th, 2025, and signed by the governor on December 22nd, 2025. This legislation, Chapter 93 of the Acts of 2025, sets forth that the Citizens Library trustees elected at Acton's annual town meeting are also trustees of the Acton Memorial Library Board of Trustees, resulting in a governance body of Acton's library system that comports with the unified operations. The trustees are currently working to amend the Acton Memorial Library bylaws of the Board of Trustees such that the 12 trustees will function as a single board governing the Acton Library system with distinct powers and duties related to the two libraries within. These bylaws can be amended at any time by the trustees should the need arise. The members of the Citizens Library Governance Advisory Committee present at the February 3rd, 2026 meeting unanimously approved that the Select Board take action to disband the committee. And then attached to that letter is an image of the legislation that was signed by the governor and the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. Yay!
Great. Thank you. Fran.
I just wanted to thank you, Alyssa, for spearheading that and seeing that through, and it's just so heartwarming. And it took a lot longer than I thought. But thank you. Hearing you speak in front of the legislature was exciting as well.
Jim.
What Fran said, we started in on this process back when I was chair, and it's just great to see that you have taken this process and carefully, painstakingly, patiently taking it through all these steps. It's great, and I look forward to we're going to get a modified bylaws, and so there's other steps that are coming. But I agree that the work of the governance advisory committee is finally at an end.
Thank you for that. I will say that the committee members also thanked me for my leadership, but really I was steered by all of those members on the committee, and their commitment and enthusiasm and optimism for a solution, particularly the Citizens Library trustees. And there were some some folks moved off of the committee and new folks moved on. So more than 3 of them, but 5 of them. So I will give credit where credit is due. And my only regret is that terrible name, which Jim had trouble saying just now.
Well,
can I make the motion? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, it's nice to see it finally come to fruition. I mean, this is something that's been kicking around going back to as long ago as when I was a library trustee in West Acton. And we were not the ones that initiated this, but it was a subject of discussion back then. I mean, so we're looking at, 9 or 10 years anyway, that this has been hanging over everybody's head. So thank you for bringing it home, Melissa.
You're welcome. I'm happy. I think I already shared with you that when I got the news, I did a happy dance in my kitchen. So I move to disband the Citizens Library Governance Advisory Committee.
Second. Moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye.
Ms. Nickel?
Yes.
And I also say aye. So that's unanimous also.
Great, thank you. Nice to have that done. Item 11, approved town manager evaluation process and timeline. I think most of the information has been circulated to all the members, but I'll just check to make sure. John, did you want to update us on this?
Sure, thank you. So the town manager's annual performance review is one of the most interesting parts of my job, and I look forward to it again this year. We have in the packet put forward the process that the chair and I discussed for how it would be implemented this year. Pretty tight turnaround for you all, but hopefully it's not something that is going to be too much trouble. If it is, we can discuss. But I will plan to get you all a memo by the end of the month, or hopefully sooner. That's 5 days, the end of the month, and with sort of feedback on what I would typically provide after a year to give my input, and then almost like a self-assessment, and then you would report back to Mary Beth with your scores, and then she would work with the chair to compile those. And then because of open meeting law and other things, they can't be shared back to you all until they're shared publicly. And they can't be shared publicly until I get a look at them. And I think I get to see them the day before or 2 days before. So we'll do that and then publish in the packet, and then it'll be out to the world. And then it'll be discussed at the meeting I think we had on the schedule. So if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. I'll do my best to get that information to you all soon.
Okay, naturally there are questions. I'll start with Jim.
Dean, I was wondering if in the process of coming up with the particular process this year, you guys made any sort of progress on the question of how we get information about how employees that work for John directly or indirectly are perceiving his leadership.
We've not had that discussion, but I think at our next meeting this coming Monday, I'll certainly reach out as chair to all town employees at that meeting in a public session and ask for if anybody has any particular input that they would like to provide. They can provide it to any member of the select board or to the chair. I think that's probably the best way that we can do it. In the past, I think I've got my finger on the pulse of a lot of town employees, and there has not been a lot of adverse comment that I've received from everyone, but you never know. And certainly it's important that we hear that. And it's important not only for hearing input from the employees, but also from the public. Mm-hmm. So I will make a formal statement at that meeting on Monday night, just to encourage folks to come forward.
Okay, yeah, I mean, my point of view is that as John continues his growth into being an amazing town manager, it's helpful for us to be able to fine tune the feedback about, where are the areas where, John's particularly exceeding and where John, could use some support to, live up to his full potential. And I think that sort of information might come from the kind of anonymous surveys that are in a lot of corporate America. But I know that's been hard to put together. So, and I haven't pushed for it. So here's my last chance to say, I think it's a good idea to get to it someday.
Okay, thank you. David.
But just for clarity, I think, Dean, you said that we had a copy of this process. I haven't seen this process. So I just want to make sure that there isn't confusion and we will get a copy of or at least I need one. I don't know whether, anyway, I need one.
Yeah, I've got one, but I think it was probably something that the manager shared with me at one of our agenda setting sessions. So John, can you make sure that?
It was intended to be, it was supposed to be in the packet. I'm surprised that it's not.
Yeah, it goes right from 09 to 12. So yeah, nothing in there for item 10.
And speaking of the packet, can Alyssa's memo be added to the packet? Just for historical reasons?
Yeah, mine wasn't added because I asked for a town council to review it first.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, it wasn't requested to be in the packet until tonight. So.
Okay, we'll make sure people get it.
Thank you.
All right. Item 12. Approve intermunicipal agreement between the town of Acton and the town of Boxford to share Veteran Services Department. John.
This is an arrangement that we forged or established 3 to 5 years ago. It's worked out really well. James McCrae is an excellent provider of these services to the community in Acton, and he does a great job in Boxborough as well, and he helps out people in other communities as well. And so this is a win-win for Acton and Boxborough. It gives us opportunity to keep Jim busy. It gives Boxborough a point person, and then Boxborough gives us some money to help pay for the service. So it's worked out really well for a while. We have to renew it every 3 years, and then we have to share it with the State Department of Veteran Services to make sure that they're comfortable with it. And I expect that they will be. But we have this before you tonight, and then Boxborough is going to be looking at this, I think, at their next meeting Monday.
Okay, any questions? I'll entertain a motion. David?
I move to approve the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Acton and the town of Boxborough to share Veteran Services Department that was included in our packet.
I get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Yeah.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenal?
Aye.
Ms. Nichol?
Yes.
And I also say aye. So that's unanimous.
Very good, thank you. Item 13. Announce nomination process for the Colonel Francis Faulkner Senior Exemplary Volunteer of the Year Award. That was in the packet. Lisa put together a nice package. We're doing something a little bit different this year. We're going to have the award ceremony at 17 Woodbury Lane.
Nice.
We'll,
Oh, I'm so excited.
Well, wait, who's going to shovel? Who's going to shovel the path in?
Yeah. I figure the way winter is going with no heat in that building, we might end up having a lighted campfire on the nice concrete floor. So it's a small facility, but I think it'll be sufficient for the kind of group that we have for this award ceremony. Hopefully, yeah, the snow will have melted by April 15th. So I think it'll be a great ceremony. You're all familiar with the process. Lisa did send out a list there of all the previous recipients. And unless there's any questions, I think what I'd like to do is have folks come back with their recommendations, I would say, for the meeting on March 16th. I think that should give everybody enough time. We've probably all got some nominees in mind anyway. So unless there's any other questions, Jim.
I had a moment of panic looking at the list and noticing that the person I nominated last year, John Watlington, was missing a G from his last name. So I got worried that the plaque, was written wrong, and I couldn't on the check. So someone could get back to me who actually gets to town hall in the next 2 or 3 days and tell me that the name is spelled correctly on the plaque. I'll rest easier.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you. Any other? It's a great motivator. I really enjoy doing this every year. That we've got such an amazing set of volunteers that it's a simple enough thank you. But I think it means a lot to the volunteers that in future years they walk by and see their names, whether they're spelled correctly or not. Any questions or comments? Okay. Consent. Item 14, approve meeting minutes from January 12th, January 20th, January 21st, January 29th, February 2nd, 2026. 15, approve a one-day entertainment license with live music for Wonder at 145 Great Road on March 5th, 2026. Item 16, approve a one-day malt and wine license for Wonder at 145 Great Road on March 5th, 2026. Item 17, approve a one-day malt and wine license for Pepper's Artful Events at the Discovery Museum at 177 Main Street, March 28th, 2026. Item 18, approve request to close Spruce Street for Silver Unicorn Bookstore Kids Graphic Novel Festival on May 2nd, 2026, and authorize town manager to sign license agreement. Item 19, approve 2026 Acton Boxborough Farmers Market license agreement.
Hold.
Item 20, accept donation towards the Veteran Service gift account. David Carey for $100 in memory of Robert Rhodes. Nancy Best for $200. And Orion Industries for $1,000. Item 21, approve letter of support for Conservation Division application for the 2026 AARP Community Challenge Grant to approve 3 trail sections at the Acton Arboretum.
I move to approve consent items 14 through 18 inclusive and items 20 and 21.
Second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nichol,
Yes.
and I also say aye. So that's also unanimous.
Okay. Item 19.
Thanks. So I was in conversation with Debbie Endell, who's actually in the audience in case she has something in addition. But the issue that I understand about this is in the use purpose term area, point 2, it says a certain portion of the parking spaces will be reserved for the use of the courts. And the concern that raised was that the actual parking spaces right around the tennis courts are all filled by vendors. There's not a way for cars to suddenly come in there and, park next to someone who's selling fruit. So the thought was that meant parking spaces over like in the faculty parking area would be reserved. But we thought we should get clear on this before it gets approved.
Okay. Tom, I think you were working on negotiating this.
So I had, I think John would have a little bit more information, but I can provide what I do know. I think that the intent is to provide usage at the courts. There hasn't been, speaking with Tim, the new Recreation and Parks Director today, there hasn't been an identification on exactly where those spots would be to allow access to the courts. And I think that's open for further conversation.
Yeah, I see you actually has raised their hands is David Garrett, who's also works on the farmers market, in case it might be helpful to call him in on this conversation.
Okay. John, do you have any input on this, or shall we just?
Yeah, I think so. And Tim and I met with Debbie and David a few weeks ago, and we talked about the goal of the changes that were in this license this year, different from last year, was allow for the ongoing use of the recreation facility for tennis or pickleball, tennis, etc. And so I don't know that there's a specific parking space identified or a number of parking spaces. Perhaps there should have been in this document. It would have been better. It's something that we can work on and bring back, or we can get some direction from you and make that be what's in there before I sign it, and rather than it come back again. I think, I don't know. I can't remember how many spots there are. If the ones right next to the courts are being used by the vendors, aren't there ones that aren't right next to the courts that are still part of that parking lot?
Not really.
Not really, no.
No. Okay.
Would it be okay to call him in?
Yeah, let's hear from the applicant.
I have a quick question. Do folks actually play tennis while the farmer's market is going on? Would anyone know the answer to that?
I've seen it.
Well,
Really?
last year, I think, and last year the courts were closed during the farmers market for
Okay.
reserved by the farmers market for farmers market purposes.
Yeah.
Farmers market weren't playing tennis, but they just weren't having anyone else play tennis during that period.
I think, you know, one of the points that I think is really important about this is that, you know, the taxpayers and CPC appropriated a considerable amount of money to rehab those tennis courts. And to have them basically closed for every Sunday from May until October doesn't seem reasonable to me. So I think it's important to make sure that, you know, eventually I think farmers market probably should move to some other location that's more appropriate. But at least as a stopgap for this year, at least we should allow folks, the taxpayers, to be able to use the tennis courts that they paid for on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
But let's hear from the David.
So I guess I have a different point of view here. It seems reasonable to me to close the tennis courts for 4 hours on Sunday. The farmers market has become a fixture in town and is visited during those 4 hours by many, many more people than play tennis during those 4 hours, than would play tennis during those 4 hours. And mostly those people are Acton residents, right? So I'm not saying there's no one there from Boxborough or anything, but most of those people are Acton residents. So, and they're not walking on the resurfacing of the tennis courts, right? So there's no vendor that sets up on the courts themselves. And so I think this is a good use of this recreational facility for the town. And I think it's incompatible to have people park there. I don't mind people parking where the farmers market people park, which is in one of the school parking lots. And then they walk down, that's fine. I think it would not work to have people driving around in front of the vendors there. I mean, I just don't see this and why it's important to have tennis people park next to the tennis courts during the 4 hours, including the setup and the takedown of the farmers market.
Well, actually, David, I agree with you on that. I would think that the tennis or pickleball players could certainly park down on the school department parking lot and walk down and limber up on their way down, cool off on their way back. So I would agree with you there. But I do think it's important that the tennis courts be available for use. But I certainly agree with you that it doesn't make much sense to introduce a bunch of cars into the area that's being used by vendors. I can see that where that would be a problem. So I think we've got someone, there's a person in the audience who would like to speak to this.
Yeah, that would be David Garrett. He's got his hand up.
David, you just have to unmute.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
First, I just wanted to, I'm a board member and have been a volunteer for the market from day one. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the town. Over the years, the town has been remarkably generous and very collaborative, and you know, we look forward to doing that. Just to clarify a couple things, at the meeting we had with Tim and John on February 5th, we did discuss this, and although we would have preferred there not to be pickleball, mostly just because it's very loud, we agreed with them that that was fine, you know, continue. We had no objection at that point to having the pickleball or tennis, whatever was going to be played there. We did talk about parking, and there was never any mention at that time of the town requesting that some space be held out. And frankly, had that request been made, we would have said the same thing that we're going to say now, is that, and that point has already been made by some of you, that it's impractical. First of all, we have contracts already with roughly 20 vendors. In that contract, there's a certain amount of space allocated to them. There are contracts that are out with several others. At this point, it would be really impractical. And frankly, almost inappropriate to sort of rescind, to take away something from the vendors that we've already made commitments to. So, we're frankly not thrilled with the fact that they've taken the parking away from in front of the courts, where people, both vendors never park there, but some of our people do, and some of the shoppers do. But we agreed. It wasn't our choice, but we agreed to, say, well, sure, fine, we understand that. So we gave up our preference not to have pickleballs. We gave up preference to have the parking that was in front of there. And again, no mention was ever made until we saw a contract today for the first time, that there was some hope that some of those parking spaces would be put aside. So we had a very hurried email exchange this evening, because again, we'd never heard of this request, or I don't know whether it's a request or demand. It wasn't clear to me. And it didn't, and John, as you were saying, it didn't specify anything. It just said some spaces would need to be provided or something like that. I've never even seen the language, because I didn't have the opportunity to read it in advance. So it sounds like you all, not everyone has spoken, but it sounds like you all would support, given the fact that we frankly need all that space. And because this in all likelihood, is the last year that we will be at this location. That's the other thing that we talked to John and Tim about, was that, the impracticalities, so that we will hopefully get together really early and collaborate, get together with town folks and talk about what our needs are, and talk about, finding that place that could be a permanent home, because that's really what we want. But for this year, we very strongly advise not giving up parking spaces, because frankly, I don't even know how you would manage it. How would a pickleball user have access to a space that a market goer wouldn't? Because certainly we wouldn't be policing it. I don't know how one would make that assessment. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Alyssa?
So I agree with everyone that it's not a good idea to have folks driving into the parking lot during the farmer's market. There's 2 entrances that are blocked off with stanchions. And I think limbering up and cooling down on a walk to and from and to the parking lot, the staff parking lot for the Boardwalk campus is appropriate, and those spaces can be set aside for folks that want to use the courts. I do have a question, though. I have seen vehicles on Elm Street that are adjacent to the courts, and I assumed that those were farmers market volunteers and or folks that need accessible parking. So I'm just curious where folks who need an accessible spot will park. And I guess maybe the farmers market already has designated spaces in the parking lot for folks who need to park their car if they have a placard.
Okay, David, I think you've got your hand raised.
Yep. Am I still? Yeah, there we are. Yes, we have 2 allocated spaces for handicap parking. Just as you enter the ring where the manager's table is, there's 2 spots there. And the reason that they're near us is frankly to help maneuver the cars at times, and so that there's no issues with foot traffic. So those will remain. We still have those two, and those would remain as handicap spaces.
Okay, great. So I guess I'm wondering if we can approve this agreement just by removing that one sentence about setting aside parking spaces, or alternatively clarifying it that the spaces will be at the school lot.
Yeah, I'm inclined to do that, but I see that Jim has his hand raised.
Thanks. I had a question for David. Sometimes writing contracts is not really a great thing to do between, 5 select board members after 9 at night. So I'm wondering what would be the impact of getting this agreement signed on March 2nd rather than tonight. That would allow the farmers market and the manager team to have the little communications that'll be necessary to, have language that works for everybody.
Well, when we met with John and Tim, we had, we understand that there's a process and whatever, but at that time, there was sort of a handshake on the agreement that we had, and even that was late for us. So ideally, I would agree with you that, we could just keep moving along. We can't stop our process. We have to keep moving. I know it doesn't seem that way, given that the market starts in June, but we have a very, very sort of fixed process and timeline, and some of them have to do with applying for our SNAP program requires an address, a legal address, and you can't apply for that until that contract is signed. So given that I don't hear any objections from any of you, I'm wondering if we could just simply, if one of you objects, of course, if you wanted to wait till then, what can we do? But I would ask, since I'm not hearing an objection, if that could happen tonight.
Yeah, I think Alyssa was pretty close to making a motion that would have modified the proposed license agreement and take that one section out.
Do we want to do that and not have parking spaces reserved for the court? I don't even know if we would be able to do that on a property that doesn't belong to the town. I'm sure the district would be amenable to that. But is that a necessity, or can we just let people park where they find a space?
John.
So I think the issues that we discussed a few weeks ago when we were discussing this license was there was concern about people parking on Elm Street, and we didn't want that to happen anymore. And there was a concern about having the tennis courts being closed. We didn't talk much about where people playing tennis would park. And I think that was probably just added just to say that the people that play tennis need to park somewhere. But I think they could probably figure that out if they had to.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the easy change if that's all we're talking about, is to just move that one line. I think we can keep moving.
Okay. So then I would move to approve the license or consent item number, what number is it? 19, 18?
19.
Sorry, 19. I have the contract open. But delete the sentence that refers to parking spaces reserved for use of the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault,
Aye.
Ms. Nichol,
Yes?
and I also say yes. So that's unanimous.
Okay. All right. I think we've got a good solution to the problem.
Can I make 2 quick comments?
Certainly.
So perhaps the farmer's market could say on the signs that say farmer's market parking, they could just say and tennis parking,
Mm-hmm.
just to facilitate that. And secondly, for the discussions that about where the farmer's market would go in future years, I believe that we cannot start those too early. They really need to be done, and I think that the members of the board need to get a preview or a consult in the middle of those discussions, because we've had long discussions about this in the past, and so anyway, that's just if you wait till this time next year, it's not getting done.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I will take one more motion.
I move to
adjourn.
second.
Okay, moved and seconded. The clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Ms. Arsenal,
I
Ms. Nickel,
Yes.
and I also say yes. So good night, all.
Good night, all. Thank you very much.
Oh,
It's
time. Well done.
Thank
a
you.
step back in time. Thank you.